immemorial, the world has witnessed unbelievable tragedies in different horrifying forms. People have fought and killed each other, families have gone against one another, and communities and kingdoms have risen up in arms to finish off each other. Tears have been shed, fear has reigned supreme, terror has been unleashed, and other forms of horror have been experienced by countless people of all ages. Wars, genocides, riots, killings, and famines have ravaged the earth. However, it is noteworthy that the real evil and horror lie within the architects of these inhuman and sadistic practices. The world has seen the rise of men and women who turned so evil that their names became synonymous with brutality and wickedness. Different evil men have committed criminal acts to a level that no one else could fathom. They made decisions that ended up wreaking great havoc on humanity and caused millions of people to die or suffer in great pain. But who are the most evil people to have ever walked the surface of this earth? Let's take a look at the top 10 most evil human beings to have ever been born and what they did to deserve to be on this list. Number 10. Ivan the Terrible. Ivan the Terrible, whose real name was Ivan IV Vasilievich, was the Grand Prince of Moscow from 1533 to 1547 and the first Tsar of all Russia from 1547 to 1584. Ivan's reign was characterized by Russia's transformation from a medieval state to an empire under the Tsar, but at an immense cost to its people and its broader, long-term economy. He established great autocratic control over Russia's nobility, which he violently purged with the Oprichnina, a state policy that included mass repression of the Russian aristocrats, including public executions and confiscation of their land and property. Ivan the Terrible became one of the most feared men in Russian history. He was absolutely brutal. The later years of Ivan's reign were marked by the massacre of Novgorod, during which Ivan the Terrible launched an attack on the city of Novgorod and killed so many people. The number of people killed is estimated to be between 2,000 to 15,000. He also committed innumerable acts of extreme torture and violence. Ivan was prone to paranoia, rage, and episodic outbreaks of mental instability that increased with age. In fact, in one fit of anger, he went wild and actually murdered his eldest son and heir, Ivan Ivanovich. He is also reported to have caused the miscarriage of the latter's unborn child. Eventually, Ivan died from a stroke while he was playing chess with Bogdan Belsky on the 28th of March 1584. Number 9. Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was considered to be one of the most wicked people to have ever lived. He was the dictator of Iraq from 1979 to 2003. During his reign, he authorized countless attacks on people. His policies made way for the death of not less than 2 million people. He ordered chemical attacks, eye gouging, beatings, and severe shocks on people. He also recorded several tortures and deaths to watch them later. Hussein was known for killing his own people, gassing the Kurdish people, and also waging war with Iran with support from some Western nations. Hussein was typical of many autocratic leaders in the Middle East who ruled with an iron hand and brutally dealt with challenges to their regime. He executed thousands of opponents and struck fear into people's hearts. He was also accused of ordering the killing and torture of hundreds of Shiite villagers after a 1982 assassination attempt in Dou jail. Eventually, Saddam was found guilty of crimes against humanity and hanged in 2006. Number 8. Idi Amin. Back in the day, the name Idi Amin struck fear into many people's hearts. People dreaded him and his menacing presence often forebode evil. Idi Amin was a Ugandan military officer and politician who served as the third president of Uganda from 1971 to 1979. He ruled as a military dictator and is considered one of the most brutal despots in modern world history. Known as the Butcher of Uganda, the dictator's rule was characterized by rampant human rights abuses, including political repression, ethnic persecution, and extrajudicial killings, as well as nepotism, corruption, and gross economic mismanagement. In fact, international observers and human rights groups estimate that between 100,000 and 500,000 people were killed under his regime. According to some reports, He killed members of other ethnic groups, religious leaders, journalists, artists, senior bureaucrats, judges, lawyers, students and intellectuals, criminal suspects, and foreign nationals. In this atmosphere of violence, many other people were killed for criminal motives or simply at will. Bodies of people he killed were often dumped into the River Nile. He also killed soldiers who dared to stand against him. Among the most prominent people killed was Benedicto Kiwanuka, a former prime minister who was also the Chief Justice. Amin also killed Janoni Luwum, the Anglican archbishop, as well as Joseph Mubo, the former governor of the Central Bank of Uganda, and Frank Kalamuzo, the vice-chancellor of Makia University. Amin also murdered Byron Kawadwa, a prominent playwright. What was even more startling is that Idi Amin killed two of his own cabinet ministers, Erinayo Wilson Oriema and Charles Oboth Offenbai. Idi Amin was eventually ousted from power in 1979 and went into exile, first in Libya, then Iraq, and finally in Saudi Arabia, where he lived until his death in 2003. Number 7. Kim Jong-il. Kim Jong-il was a North Korean politician who was the second supreme leader of North Korea from 1994 to 2011. He led North Korea from the 1994 death of his father Kim Il-sung, the first supreme leader, until his own death in 2011, when he was succeeded by his son, Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-il ruled North Korea as a repressive and totalitarian dictator. According to a 2004 Human Rights Watch report, the North Korean government under Kim was among the world's most repressive governments and quote, "At one point, the man had up to 200,000 political prisoners according to US and South Korean officials. There was no freedom of the press or religion and anyone who violated certain rules was executed." Kim Jong-il exercised total control over one of the world's most closed and repressive governments for 17 years. He was responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands, and perhaps millions of North Koreans through widespread preventable starvation, horrendous prisons and forced labor camps, and public executions. His name signified terror in North Korea. Kim eventually died of a suspected heart attack on the 17th of December 2011 at 8:30 a.m. while traveling by train to an area outside Pyongyang. Number 6. Leopold II. Leopold II was the second king of the Belgians from 1865 to 1909 and the self-made autocratic ruler of the Congo Free State from 1885 to 1908. Leopold was the founder and sole owner of the Congo Free State, a large state and absolute monarchy in Central Africa. The state included the entire area of the present Democratic Republic of the Congo and existed from 1885 to 1908. He extracted a fortune from the territory, initially by the collection of ivory and later by forced labor from the native population to harvest and process rubber after a rise in the price of natural rubber in the 1890s. Leopold ruled with merciless antics and killed so many people. His administration of the Congo Free State was characterized by atrocities and systematic brutality, including forced labor, torture, murder, kidnapping, and the amputation of the hands of men, women, and children when the quota of rubber was not met. In 1890, George Washington Williams described the practices of Leopold's administration of the Congo Free State as crimes against humanity and quote, "Under Leopold's regime, millions of Congolese inhabitants, including children, were mutilated, killed, or died from disease and famine." In 1908, the reports of deaths and abuse carried out by Leopold became so much that they caused a huge international outcry. Eventually, the Congo Reform Association and other international groups induced the Belgian government to take over the administration of the Congo from Leopold during the penultimate year of his rule. Number 5. Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan was the founder and first great Khan or emperor of the Mongol Empire, which became the largest contiguous empire in history after his death. He came to power by uniting many of the nomadic tribes of the Mongol steppe and being proclaimed the universal ruler of the Mongols. Genghis Khan launched several military campaigns and took over so many territories in military conquests. His exceptional military successes made Genghis Khan one of the most important conquerors of all time, and by the end of the Great Khan's life, the Mongol Empire occupied a substantial portion of Central Asia and China. However, the story of Genghis Khan's conquest has a fearsome reputation in local history. He was a brutal ruler who didn't mind wiping out entire cities and killing everyone he met during his campaigns. Many accounts, including different medieval chroniclers and modern historians, have described Genghis Khan's conquests as unbelievable destruction on an unprecedented scale. In fact, his conquests led to a drastic population decline in some regions as a result of both mass killings and famine. The estimated number of people who died as a result of Genghis Khan's military campaigns range from about 4 million people to up to 60 million people. He was ruthless in his conquests. It is reported that Genghis could wipe out an entire city or community words to an ally confessed to killing many people, including peasants, men and women, old and young people who lived at Ablusha and Nova Selo, including 23,884 Turks. In total, Vlad is estimated to have killed about 80,000 people through various means. This includes some 20,000 people who were impaled and put on display outside the city of Turgovishte, the site. The great damage was so repulsive that the invading Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II, after seeing the scale of Vlad's carnage and the thousands of decaying bodies being picked apart by crows, turned back and retreated to Constantinople. Vlad was so vicious that an unverified report claimed that he once sat down to eat in the middle of impaled dead bodies and mortally wounded enemies who were writhing in pain around him while hanging in the air. Number 3. Pol Pot. Pol Pot was a Cambodian revolutionary, dictator, and politician who ruled Cambodia as Prime Minister of Democratic Kampuchea between 1976 and 1979. Pol Pot transformed Cambodia into a one-party state called Democratic Kampuchea, while seeking to create an agrarian socialist society that he believed would evolve into a communist society. Pol Pot's government forcibly relocated the urban population to the countryside to work on collective farms. Pursuing complete egalitarianism, money was abolished and all citizens were made to wear the same black clothing. Pol Pot then began ordering mass killings of perceived government opponents. These killings, coupled with malnutrition and poor medical care, left millions of people dead. It is estimated that between 1.5 and 2 million people, approximately a quarter of Cambodia's population, died. This is now known as the Cambodian genocide. Pol Pot has been widely denounced internationally for his role in the Cambodian genocide and is regarded as a totalitarian dictator guilty of crimes against humanity. Pol Pot was eventually toppled from power. He was put under house arrest and died shortly after. Number 2. Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin was a Georgian revolutionary and Soviet political leader who led the Soviet executed. The secret police strictly enforced Stalinism and people were encouraged to inform on one another. Up to 3 million people were accused of opposing communism and sent to the Gulag, the system of labor camps in Siberia, to suffer in unbearable conditions. Around 750,000 people were summarily killed. His regime of terror caused the death and suffering of tens of millions. Over the years, Stalin has been widely condemned for overseeing mass repression, ethnic cleansing, wide-scale deportation, hundreds of thousands of executions, and famines that killed millions. Number 1. Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was an Austrian-born German politician who was the dictator of Germany from 1933 until his death in 1945. Hitler rose to power as the leader of the Nazi Party and then became the Chancellor in 1933, taking the title of Führer und Reichskanzler in 1934. Hitler reigned with iron fists and struck terror into the hearts of millions. During his dictatorship, Adolf Hitler initiated World War II in Europe, an event that saw the death of millions of people. Hitler was closely involved in military operations throughout the war and was central to the perpetration of the Holocaust, the genocidal killing of about 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. Under Hitler's watch, up to 1.3 million men, women and children were sent to the Auschwitz-Birkenau complex, a concentration camp in Oświęcim, Poland. Of this number, 1.1 million people were killed, with most of them being gassed to death. The rest then succumbed to illness, starvation, individual executions, and medical experiments. The historian and